Yesterday we were looking at the different plagues and how they were directed specifically at the gods of Egypt. God was pointing out how the gods of Egypt were not true gods. They were not powerful, that he was more powerful than they. The last plague we looked at, I think, was the blood-sucking flies or beetles, or some people have different designations as to what these actually were. Do we have all the information on that one? Are we ready to go on to the next one? Any questions? Okay, next. It's not working. Well, it's working on my screen on my laptop, but it's not up there. So I'm going to bring it up again, start over again. Okay, there we go. And we saw the scarab. We'll come back to the scarab. All right, next is a cattle plague. Some think it may have been a cattle disease called murrain, M-U-R-R-A-I-N-E. And what god did you think was being attacked there? Rick?
Hathor.
Hathor. And why Hathor?
Because she had ears of a cow.
Okay, she had ears. Well, wouldn't that be a great compliment to give somebody? Oh, my darling, you have ears like a cow. And a head like a cow too. Now that we talk about it. Okay, so Hathor. Anybody? Anything else? Any other gods that would be included in this? Cattle disease. Who else? Against who else would that be directed? Hathor, Hathor, the cow god of fertility. Zach?
Isis.
Why Isis?
She wore cow horns.
Okay, so we do find cow horns in some of the other gods, but Hathor is that one that actually looks like a cow. So we'll stick with Hathor for that. But there is one other. Who's the bull?
Happy.
Yeah, Apis or Apis is also. So we have those two. Apis, the bull, symbol of strength, fertility, and prosperity, and also Hathor we could have, or Hathor. All right, everybody sit there. We got it? Okay, the next one is boils. We're told that boils broke out on man and beast. Now, this one may have been a little more difficult for you to figure out. Did anybody have an idea, Matthew?
I had Isis,
Okay, why Isis?
because she was the goddess of medicine.
Right. So that could fit, because they had these boils and they couldn't get rid of them. Isis was powerless to get rid of this. She couldn't do her healing. Okay, so that's one possibility. Anybody have another one? I'll tell you one I think that's maybe more directly involved, and that is Seth. And it's because of this. The sprinkling of ashes by the Egyptian priests was supposed to propitiate Seth. So in other words, this was the sacrifice they made to Seth was sprinkling ashes. Well, what did Moses do to precipitate the boils? He sprinkled ashes. And then that spread boils to all the people and animals. So you can see why that, because of what he did in relationship to what the priests did, that might be a direct assault on Seth or Seth. Okay, so put that down there if you don't have Seth. Anybody have Seth? Yeah, that you'd have had to do some research to find that out. All right, any questions? Any others that you have there? Okay, the next is hail mingled with fire. Now, what do you suppose the fire was? It just says fire, but if it's hail mingled with fire, what would that be? What would you call that, Zach?
I was gonna say what.
Oh, okay, we're not there yet. Let's answer the question at hand. What would you call fire that was associated with hail?
Like volcanic rocks.
Well, there's no volcanoes in Egypt. Have you ever seen fire when you saw hail? Amelia? Pardon me?
Like ashes.
Ashes? No. You're thinking too complexly. Do you ever look up at the sky when there's a storm, a hailstorm maybe coming, and you see fire in the sky? What is it, Zach?
Thunder, lightning.
Lightning. Isn't lightning when you call that fire in the sky?
Oh.
You look dumbfounded.
Mm.
Is that still not penetrating? That would be like fire in the sky is lightning. So that's probably what it was. I don't think it was actual, bolts of fire, or pieces of fire coming down with the hail. But you got hailstorm, you got lightning. So I think that's probably what it was. Hail mingled with fire, and against what god or gods would that be directed? Do you think? Who do you have, Matthew?
Newt.
Okay, why Newt?
That she was the goddess of the sky.
Yeah. So, goddess of the sky. She can't control lightning and hail coming down. Who else? Everybody have Newt?
Yeah.
Anybody have anything? Anybody else? Is that it? You're satisfied with one God? There may have been more. Okay, how about Isis? Isis is pretty powerful. She has to do with the sky as well. So it could be her, Matthew.
Horus.
Horus, also associated with the sky, right? He's the sky god, or something like that, right? You might have had Serapis also, but probably Newt is the best one here. Now, there's also one called Shu, which we didn't have on our list. Shu is generally depicted as a man wearing an ostrich feather headdress, though he sometimes was shown wearing the sun disk on his head. So that would associate him with the sky. And then, of course, here we have Newt. Did you come across this picture when you were looking up the gods? How many of you saw this picture? Something like this. Yeah, this is the interesting picture of Newt. And I saw that picture several times in hieroglyphics in Egypt. Now here's what they felt about the going up and down of the sun. All right, the sun in the morning would be ingested by Newt. Sun comes up, and then it passes through her all day long because she's the sky, and then she eliminates it in the evening. So the sun comes out, and it goes down, and then it goes down into the ground. Well, how does it get from here to here to come up the next morning? Does anybody know? That's where our little friend, the dung beetle, comes in. Well, I guess maybe you haven't. Matthew is the only one that had Mrs. Henry in first grade, so he maybe is the only one that's ever seen pictures of a dung beetle. So what does a dung beetle do, Matthew?
It like goes into poop and elephants or something.
Okay, what does it do with the poop of elephants?
I forget.
I mean, first grade, was it that long ago?
You make a home.
It pushes it along until it becomes a ball. It keeps pushing it, and then it lays eggs in there, and then when the little beetles hatch, they have something upon which to feed. They feed on what's in the elephant food. So they're called dung beetles because they push along, and if you're in South Africa and maybe other parts of the world as well, you may see these. In South Africa, they're protected. You're not supposed to run over the dung beetles with your vehicle, or their balls of poop.
Huh.
Because it's got little beetles inside there, maybe. All right, so now what happens is they believe that the dung beetle or the scarab, that's the word usually associated with the Egyptian, pushes the sun, because the sun's in a ball just like the dung is, the elephant poop. It pushes it all night long over to the other side, and then the sun comes up into Newt again. So, isn't that an interesting story?
1,000 IQ.
What, 1,000 IQ?
Yeah.
What's come up with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's kind of fascinating how they thought about the sky. So that's Newt. So hail and lightning coming from Newt would be an attack on her. All right, any questions about the hail mixed with fire or lightning? All right, the next one is locusts. And this is a picture of actual locusts. Can you imagine there being so many locusts? How many have seen a locust? All right, maybe around here. I've heard them at night or in the daytime too. I've heard them, but I don't think I've seen any around here. But I think I've told you before. I saw them when I lived in Dallas, and they were huge, and they would leave their shells all over the place. And but mostly, I was afraid of them. I was afraid to walk under a tree if I heard, because those things would come flying out, and if they hit you, it would hurt because they were big. They were the biggest small birds. So anyway, but locusts, just thousands, millions of them. Who knows? Looks like coming there in that picture. So the locusts swarmed over the land, and what do the locusts do when they swarm over the land?
Eat.
Yeah, they eat everything in sight. And here's a close-up picture of a locust. Similar to a grasshopper in some ways, but and it may be that the word locust was referring maybe not to the same kind of locust that we had. Maybe it was referring more to grasshopper types. But whatever, those armies come in. In fact, in the Old Testament, there are times when God refers to armies coming into an area with the same kind of language. They come in and destroy everything. Okay, so what's the god that is being attacked in the locusts? What'd you have there? Zach?
That's that.
Seth, why? Why'd you pick Seth? Just put your finger down. I'm sure you must have had a reason at the time. Rick, what?
He's the god of chaos.
God of chaos,
He's
and there's something else he's the god of. Maybe you didn't find this.
storms.
Well, this wouldn't be a storm. This is,
Desert?
unless they came out of the desert, it really wouldn't refer to that either.
God of darkness.
Yeah, and there were many of them that made it look dark, but that's not really the issue here. He's also the god of insects. You probably didn't find that one because that's kind of down the list, I suppose. But Seth is the god of insects. So it could be Seth that's right. Now there's another god that it might be too, and that is Isis. Anybody have Isis? It's because in pictures of Isis, she's holding a locust. Isn't that interesting? And there's another god, and that's the one that we had trouble finding, Serapis. Serapis specifically was the god who was supposed to protect the land from locusts. So that's the god that was supposed to protect them from locusts apparently wasn't doing his job, right? So all three of those are involved here. Serapis probably the main one because he was supposed to protect the land, and also Seth and Isis. All right, so you got those? All right, now the next plague is darkness. Oh, I see some hands already. John.
Ra, because he's the sun god.
Yeah, what's happened to the sun god? If it's all dark, where is he?
In the ground.
He's still on the ground, being pushed along by the dung beetle. Yeah, so that would be an attack on Ra, who represents the sun. Who else would be involved here? Zach?
Nut and Isis.
Okay, why not? Or Newt?
Because he's the god of or goddess of the sky.
Right. So the goddess of the sky. And who else did you say?
Horus.
Horus, because he's the god of the sky also in a different way. And then also Isis is involved with the sky. Oh, in fact, she's the moon goddess. So that would be that part of it. All right, so here we have Ra, the sun god, and pictured Isis, the moon goddess. So we got the sun and the moon here, who were supposed to not make it dark, and yet there was total darkness. All right, any questions? You got that one? All right. Do you appreciate how cool this is? That these plagues are directed at the Egyptian gods. I know I first discovered this. I thought, man, this is great. This is so funny that God did this. And God must have been, laughing hilariously every time he sent one of these plagues to see how he was attacking one of their gods. All right, the last plague is the death of the firstborn, and that brings us to the protection that God gave the Israelites with this final plague. And what was the protection? What did God tell the Israelites to do so that they would not be affected by this last plague? Griff?
With the blood of a lamb around the doorframe.
Right. So, and they were to kill a lamb without blemish, and put the blood on the top of the doorpost and on the side. And then they would go inside, and what would they do? Do you remember, Mia? Right. So they would have a meal. And what was that whole ceremony called?
Passover.
Passover. Good. Because the angel of death would pass over them. That's one way of looking at it. I read somewhere once that the word Passover has more the idea of an umbrella of protection. So this particular author said it wasn't so much the angel of death passing by, but that they were protected by the Passover. So just a little variation on the word there. All right, so in this one we have a Passover meal, and this is a picture of the Passover, or called Seder plate. And we're going to look at an explanation of all the parts of this, some of which they did at the time of the original Passover with Moses, and some things were added later and developed later. We're going to watch a video that helps to explain this, and then we'll come back to the results of this last plague. Have any of you ever seen a Passover Seder? No? None of you? Okay, well this is going to be a special experience for you then. Now, this is a new one. I used to show a different one, and I found this one and thought that maybe this might be better, so we'll look at this.
Celebrate the Passover. Jesus himself celebrated this holiday every year. And today, millions of Jewish people around the world gather each spring for a Passover meal. Now, we Jews for Jesus want to invite you to experience this ancient feast through this presentation of Christ in the Passover. It's the next best thing to having you in our home for the holiday. This video features David Brickman, Executive Director of Jews for Jesus. To enhance your understanding and enjoyment of this program, we've also included scenes of some of our family during Passover, informational graphics, music, and art. And now, let's join the audience as David Brickman explains the Christian significance of the ancient Jewish festival of Passover.
Part of God's plan from the beginning to break down that middle wall of partition dividing Jews and Gentiles, and to make us one together in the body of Christ. So we're one this morning in Him. Amen? Praise the Lord. But you know, because of that, you share with me in a rich heritage. The heritage of the people of Israel and all that God did to reveal Himself through the fathers, through the prophets, and through the festivals of Israel. This now becomes your heritage in Messiah. And this morning, we're going to look more closely at one aspect of that in the story of the Passover. The Passover is the account of God's redemption of the nation of Israel from bondage, from slavery in Egypt, thousands of years ago. But this morning, as we look more closely at that ancient festival of redemption, you're going to see that God, in bringing Israel out of bondage, wove into the very fabric of that story a picture of a far greater redemption of all the world, from the Egypt of sin through our Passover lamb, who is Jesus the Son. So I want to invite you to turn with me in your Bibles, if you have them, to that first Passover story, which you'll find in the book of Exodus, Exodus chapter 12, and we'll be reading verses 5 through 8 and 11 through 15. Now, if you remember, at this time, Israel was in bondage. We were enslaved in Egypt, and God promised he was going to redeem us. So he raised up Moses to go to the Pharaoh of Egypt and say, Pharaoh, let my people go. Well, Pharaoh wasn't exactly willing to listen to Moses, and so God had to convince Pharaoh to listen. God could be very convincing about these things. And he convinced Pharaoh by sending a series of plagues upon the land of Egypt. You remember the story. There were 10 plagues in all. Now, the Bible tells us that the Jewish people at this time were living in a section of Egypt called Goshen, and they were exempt from the first 9 of those 10 plagues. For example, the Bible tells us when darkness fell across the land of Egypt as a plague from the Lord, there was nevertheless light in Goshen where the Israelites were dwelling. Or when God smote the cattle of the Egyptians with plague, the cattle of the Israelites were spared. And yet Israel was not automatically exempt from the 10th plague, the worst plague, the death of the firstborn. But in order that that plague should not fall upon them, God commanded the children of Israel to take a yearling lamb for each family, and that's where we pick up the story. Exodus 12 and verse 5. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year, and you shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening, and they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat. Verse 11. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a sign upon the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Even the first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. That, then, is the historical institution of the Passover. We know that the first Passover, then, was celebrated on the night of the 10th plague, way back in the land of Egypt. But as God commanded here in Exodus 12, Israel was to continue to celebrate the Passover as a lasting ordinance. And so, through our history, as we observe this great festival, there were various symbols and traditions that were added to the observance to remind us of that first Passover back in the land of Egypt. So that by the time Jesus and the disciples were celebrating the Passover, most of the items that you see on the table before you today were already incorporated into that Passover observance. And there's a tremendous amount of preparation that goes into the celebration of the Passover. You might remember in the Gospels that Jesus even sent Peter and John ahead of him into the city of Jerusalem, saying, Go, prepare the Passover that you may eat. And this preparation involves many things, but specifically what God commanded the children of Israel to do back in the land of Egypt, we were to cleanse our houses of all leaven, anything with yeast in it. Which of course means that today all your Wonder Bread, all your Hostess Twinkies have to go. But because Passover comes during the springtime, this has become a time for a general house cleaning. And in the Orthodox Jewish home, Mom begins weeks in advance of Passover cleaning. Everything from floor to ceiling is cleaned, and there's even a whole different set of dishes put out for the Passover. But we have a problem. And the problem is that although it is the mother who does the cleaning of the house, The rabbis tell us it is only the man who can certify that the house has been properly cleaned.
She was
You
one
can
happy
see what
about
kind
that,
of
doesn't she?
problem we have. The rabbis knew that the men would never get the job done right by themselves, but they also wanted to ensure peace and harmony in the home at the Passover. So they got together and they thought about this problem, and they came up with a solution, which in Hebrew we call Benkat Hametz, or the searching out of leaven. And here's how it works. The night before Passover, Mom, already having cleaned the house of all leaven, will take a little bit that's left over. Maybe crumbs from the toast that they had for breakfast that morning, something with yeast in it, and she'll take it and hide it somewhere in the house. Now, the father coming home from work that evening will take in his hand a feather, a wooden spoon, and a napkin. And he'll go on a GI inspection to search out the leaven, looking high and looking low for those crumbs. Now, if his wife has been good enough to him, she's hid it the same place she hid it last year and the year before that. So that when he finally finds those crumbs, he takes the feather and with his